Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. The nuclear watchdog IAEA says it is still waiting for an official reply from Iran after Parliament passed a law suspending nuclear inspections, raising fears of a monitoring gap. Israel's foreign minister warns the world must act decisively to halt Iran's nuclear drive before it advances further. Now, at least 14 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes across Gaza as exhausted residents pick through rubble in search of survivors. Health officials report wounded children in hospitals, while Hamas accuses a local clan leader of treason for surrendering. The Israeli military says it has captured a terrorist cell operated by Iran in southern Syria, linking the network to broader regional plots. The operation highlights Israel's ongoing campaign to counter Iranian influence in neighboring countries. Ukraine says it has not received any official notice about a halt to US weapons shipments and is pressing Washington for clarification. Military sources warn operations will be difficult without American ammunition, underlining the need for continued support. The Kremlin declares it will use all means available to defend Russian nationals detained in Azerbaijan, according to a statement from Moscow. Officials say talks are underway between senior investigators and Baku to resolve the case. Paramount Pictures will pay Donald Trump $16 million to settle a defamation case over a 60-minute segment. The deal ends a high-profile dispute that had drawn national media attention for months. UN experts report that Rwanda is exercising command and control over M23 rebel forces, providing leadership and training. The findings point to Kigali's deeper involvement in the conflict in eastern Congo. A senior Tibetan official says the Dalai Lama does not need to be born in Tibet, pushing back against China's claim to control the process. Followers in India have welcomed the statement as a bold reaffirmation of spiritual autonomy. Now for our top story, we start in the United States. Paramount Pictures has settled a high-profile lawsuit with President Donald Trump for $16 million. The dispute stemmed from a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, which Trump claimed was deceptively edited to favor Democrats. The settlement funds will go towards Trump's future presidential library, not to him directly. There was no apology or admission of wrongdoing from Paramount. As part of the deal, 60 Minutes agreed to release future transcripts of presidential interviews. This marks another media concession to Trump, following similar settlements with ABC and Meta. Paramount is currently pursuing an $8.4 billion merger with Skydance Media. We're now joined by John Rossimondo to discuss this settlement in further detail. John, what is the significance of Paramount giving Donald Trump this $16 million, and what does it say about the wider transparency of the media landscape in the United States overall?
Well, it just reinforces the idea that the American media is just delved into propaganda instead of reporting the news. It's been out to cast Donald Trump as a rapist, out to cast Donald Trump as a reprobate, a Russian spy, everything bad thing you can imagine. And this just goes to show that Paramount had no confidence in the deceptively edited segment on 60 Minutes.
Yes, John Rossimondo, thank you very much. You are staying with us. We move on now. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has vowed to defend Japan's national interest amid stalled trade talks with the United States and renewed tariff threats from President Donald Trump. Speaking in a public debate with opposition leaders on Wednesday, Ishiba emphasized Japan's status as the largest investor in the United States, highlighting that Japanese companies generate more American jobs than any other foreign nation. Let's listen in to what the Japanese Prime Minister had to say.
何としても国益を守り抜かねばならないと思っています。いろんな国とアメリカは貿易をしていますが、 一つ申し上げておかなければいけないのは、日本はアメリカにおける世界最大の投資国であり、そしてアメリカにおいて世界最大のいろんな国が投資していますが、雇用を生み出しているということです。それは他の国とは訳が違う。
His remarks come a day after President Trump signaled he may impose tariffs as high as 35% on Japanese imports, an escalation from the 24% rate previously announced and paused until July the 9th. Trump has accused Japan of being spoiled and very tough to deal with, citing a lack of access for US rice exports and an imbalanced auto trade. He said if no deal is reached, the United States will act unilaterally to impose the tariffs. With time running out before July the 9th, Ishiba reaffirmed Tokyo's commitment to diplomacy, but said Japan would not bow to pressure that undermines its long-standing economic relationship with Washington. We're once again joined by John Rossomando, who's the president of the Viking Research Associates located in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, John, for joining us once again. How much leverage does Japan really have here in these trade talks? How does one get leverage in trade talks with Donald Trump? It's only the United Kingdom that has so far secured one of these deals, and this deadline is really creeping up on all these countries that want to make a deal with Donald Trump. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that President Trump has had a thing against Japan going back to the 1980s. Back in the 1980s, he had the same sort of rhetoric about how Japan was dumping, steel, cars, and other goods on the American markets, and Americans couldn't sell their goods in Japan. So this is just something that's been ongoing. I think that the Japanese could have some difficulties with Trump on this, because this is not something new for him.
John Rossomando, thank you very, very much for joining us on the program. We move over to the Middle East for our next set of stories, where Iran has officially suspended cooperation with the UN's nuclear watchdog. President Masoud Pezeshkian has signed off on the law approved after last month's war with Israel. State media confirmed the move is now in effect. The International Atomic Energy Agency says it's waiting official word from Tehran on what this means for inspections and monitoring. The IAEA has expressed concern over the decision. The suspension follows airstrikes by Israel and the US on Iranian nuclear sites. Diplomatic talks remain very tense as Western powers urge Iran to return to compliance. Meanwhile, Germany has called the move a disastrous signal that undermines regional stability and efforts to revive nuclear diplomacy. The situation could complicate future negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. We're now joined by Ali Emma Bushback, who is a Middle East affairs expert and researcher located in Cairo, Egypt. Ali, thank you very much for joining us on the program as always. What impact will Iran's suspension of cooperation with this UN nuclear watchdog have on regional security, and also, of course, the ability of reviving possible future talks?
Thank you, Thomas. In fact, after the Israeli attack in Iran, the Iranian parliament has decided to withdraw from this agency. In fact, because it's losing the trust and the credibility of this agency during the attack of Israeli and American attack in Iran. So the thing is meaningless to be a part of this agency and to being a part of this community, despite that Iran many times mentioning that the nuclear program, it's a peaceful, and there is a several of investigation from this agency to investigate the Iranian facilities and Iranian nuclear program. Despite that, this agency couldn't stop or hold the war against Iran from the Israel and America. So it's meaningless to be a part of these bodies or this community, despite that there is no hold for or protection from the war or protection from aggression. So also today, the Iranian president, he decided that, and stressed that they are already withdraw from these bodies, I guess it will not impact Iran, especially because when they were a part of it, despite they are a part of this agency, despite that Iran was under Israeli attack. And all the international community, they didn't condemn the Israelis' aggression or Israelis' attack in Iran. So this is the significant issue. We are talking about the duality of the standard of the international community. While Iran was its nuclear program was peaceful and it's going to generate power to Iran. Despite that, it was under attack. Several of people and casualties and the scientists was as a they lost their lives, they lost their beloved because of the Israelis' attack. Despite that, also the community didn't condemn it and didn't defend Iran from this aggression or from this attack.
Yes.
So here we can say it's meaningless to be a part of it. So that's it. Iran was, withdraw from this agency or bodies because it doesn't make any sense to be a part or to be away from this.
Yes, Ali, we move on to some more information for our viewers. Israel's foreign ministry, Gideon Saar, has condemned Iran's move to freeze cooperation with the UN's nuclear watchdog, calling it a scandalous decision and a complete renunciation of its international nuclear obligations. Posting on X, Saar urged European signatories of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal to trigger the agreement's snapback mechanism and reimpose all UN sanctions lifted under the accord. He warned the international community must act decisively to stop what he described as Iran's nuclear ambitions. Ali, Emma Bushback, we're joined back with once again. We saw Iran's top diplomat visit Europe during this conflict to discuss nuclear negotiations. We, of course, have this 2015 nuclear deal, which lifted sanctions on Iran, which then the United States pulled out of underneath Donald Trump's first term. What Gideon Saar is asking for here is European to trigger this snapback mechanism and reimpose these sanctions on Iran. How likely do you think that it is that the European powers will trigger this snapback mechanism? And what would that mean for the nuclear deal and nuclear diplomacy going forward?
The previous term for Donald Trump during 2016, he withdrew and he imposed a sanction at Iran, despite there is the group 5+1 negotiation, and it was success, and they are left the sanction against Iran during that negotiation, and they have decided about the limitation for enrich for the nuclear and uranium about the Iran's nuclear program. But the thing says that Donald Trump, he let's make it and let's describe it as a coup, and he put all the international agreement in his back, and he considered it's not illegal. And during the administration of Obama, he gave facilities to Iran to have a nuclear weapon. But despite that, this is a fake, because Iran have never think about it, in my opinion. And Iran now, I guess now Iran insists to have a nuclear weapon as a defense weapon for it, because after the Israelis attack, Iran will become as a vulnerable, and anytime Israel could do it. And now we are witnessing there is no trust about we can't say ceasefire between Israel and Iran, because it's a calm of the fighting, I guess, because of there is no agreement, there is no compulsory obligation to Israel and to Iran to hold the military action. But also about the Western country, despite that, Western country was silent during the Israelis attack, and also was silent during the Donald Trump withdrew and canceling the agreement 5+1 between Iran and Europe and America country. So the thing says, I guess they are manipulating the situation. It's meaningless to be a part of any agreement with a Western country or America. I mean, I'm talking about the Iranian side because everyone is going to attack. And here is, as I mentioned before, during the attempt of Saddam Hussein regime to have a nuclear weapon or to have a nuclear program, so they are attacking it, the facilities of the Iraqi nuclear. Israel destroy it, as well as about Muammar al-Gaddafi. So it's very clear. They are it's the Western country alongside with America. They will not allow to Arab area or any Middle East country to hold and to have a nuclear, even for a peaceful use. Despite Iran was
Yes.
a part of the international agency, and also it was open source for every investigator from United Nations or any organization to investigate about their nuclear program.
Ali, thank you very much. We're running out of time, but we move on and stay in the Middle East, where at least 14 people were killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza today, according to Gaza's Civil Defense Agency, as US President Donald Trump is urging Hamas to accept a 60-day ceasefire deal. Civil Defense spokesman Mahmoud Basal said 5 members of one family were killed in an airstrike on a tent housing displaced people in Al-Mawasi, a coastal area designated by Israel as a safe zone. 4 more family members were also killed in a strike in Gaza City, and another 5 died in a drone strike in Be'er el Bala. Let's listen in to what some Gazans had to say.
والله نايمين يما ما سمعنا لنا هالدب يما زلزلت الدنيا تزلزل يما والله أنا نايمة عند ابني يما ما عرفت وين أطلع بقول له يما وين الباب يما ورجيني الباب يما بصر مين يما استشهد يمكن هنا عنا يما الضربة يما طلعنا نجري يما لقينا الخيمة مولعة نار يما
وأجوا هنا قالوا منطقة يمنا فقتلوهم في المنطقة الآمنة قتلوهم إيش عملية نفسي أعرف إيش عملية.
The Israeli military said this week it has expanded its operations in Gaza, claiming to have eliminated dozens of terrorists and destroyed hundreds of terror infrastructure sites. The war, now entering its 21st month, began after Hamas's October the 7th, 2023 attack that killed 1,219 people in Israel. Since then, Israel's military campaign has killed at least 56,000 people, mostly civilians, according to Gaza's health ministry, figures deemed reliable by the United Nations. We're once again joined by Ali M. Bushback to discuss this ongoing situation further. I just want to get your thoughts on the ongoing attacks and the IDF strategy in accomplishing its aims. It's obviously said it's expanding its operations in the Gaza Strip. These numbers are coming through every single day, like clockwork. What are your thoughts, Ali, on the techniques that the IDF is currently using in Gaza?
Thomas, worth mentioning that last week, the Gazans people, they describe it as an intensive week for them. Israel was intensively bombing Gaza, and they consider it as an unprecedented time from the intensive bombardment and from the size and the level of Israelis' attack in Gaza. The day before yesterday, Israel targeted a coffee shop in the coffees in Al-Shati refugee camp, several of Palestinian civilians fell as casualties from the Israelis' attack. We are become as adapting or as a normal to hear that in every single day 100 Palestinians have been killed during the Israelis airstrike. So the thing is, also it's become a normal for the audience to hear about the humanitarian aid. The people who got killed they are waiting for their turn to get a humanitarian aid. So the thing is, nowadays in Gaza on the ground, people are disappointed from these policies and Israelis' technique, despite Israel has a size of more than 70% of the Gaza's side. So things is make it more complicated. Here is the observer divided to do deficit to two division. Some of them they are optimists because they are considering Israel intense military operation in Gaza. That's mean they are going to reach to ceasefire ASAP as soon as possible. And a pessimistic observer, they consider Israel as not go to it's going to pressurize Hamas and going flexing its muscle sending indirect message to Iran and the other proxy if they are thinking to do any action
Ali,
against Israel. So,
can I quickly interrupt you? We don't have much time, so I just want to ask a brief follow-up question. Do you think Israel's ongoing offensive is going to make it more likely for Hamas to accept this 60-day ceasefire proposal?
I guess as a practice, practically Hamas is not going to accept it because we have witnessed since 18th of March, Israel resumed the war and it was intense airstrike. So Hamas doesn't go back and doesn't showing any flexibility. And also that the people in Gaza themselves also criticizing Hamas because they consider it as acting like a stubborn while the people are dying, while the people are killing, and Hamas is not showing any progress in the negotiation. So here's also that for the delegation, several of people sending a message for the delegation to at least consider the people who's got killing in any cost, in any in any payment. So they are going to accept any things, the people, civilians. But here Hamas is acting like stopping people, and the delegation team, they are acting like some. They are not going to go back from their words or what they are thinking. Yeah.
Yes, Ali, we have to move on once again. We stay in the Gaza Strip. The Hamas-run Interior Ministry in Gaza has given Yasser Abu-Shabab, the leader of a clan allegedly supported by Israel, 10 days to surrender to Hamas authorities for prosecution. Al-Shabaab is accused of treason, forming an illegal armed gang and leading an armed rebellion. His clan operates in western Rafah, an area currently under Israeli security control. This comes as Israel has recently confirmed it provided weapons to local actors in Gaza as a part of a strategy to weaken Hamas, amid reports that Abu-Shabaab's group was among them. While the Hamas statement did not specify consequences if Abu-Shabaab fails to comply, Gaza media have reported several failed assassination attempts against him. His gang is believed to have been involved in drug trafficking and aid looting in the past. We're once again joined by Ali M. Abu-Shabab. Ali, thank you very much. What does this standoff with Al-Shabaab reveal about Israel's strategy inside Gaza and the risks of arming local groups to undermine Hamas?
I think Thomas Abu-Shabab, Hamas was asking about him before the war, and he was one of the dangerous person in Gaza. Before the war, before 7th of October, Hamas was looking for him and after him, tracking him. So the thing is, Abu-Shabab, they consider it by Hamas as a criminal. This is on one side. Secondly, they consider him as a cooperating with Israel and with the Palestinian Authority and with the several of Arab area or Arab regime. They could accuse him he has received funding and money from Emirat and from Saudi Arabia. That's it. Hamas is going to assassinate him or executing him as Hamas is not going to see anyone alternative Hamas. So the thing is, Abu-Shabab, he is trying to play the role of ruling Gaza and to be as an alternative person the day one after the war and the day one after Hamas has been diminished or has been destroyed or erased from the existence in Gaza. So the thing is, Hamas is not going to give him this a chance. Hamas is going after him, but despite that, I guess Hamas has now no power to track Abu-Shabab because he has several of military people and he has making an arsenal from a militant group and a supporter from Rafah, the area that Israel is controlling it. So, as well as Abu Shabab, he was securing the humanitarian tracks that coming from the border to Gaza's people. Despite that, also Hamas is going to attack him. Here is the significant reason Hamas why it's going to be after Abu Shabab, due to Hamas is not accepting anyone to be as an alternative of it. There is on one side. Secondary, there is a news leak from the Palestinian report and Palestinian media agency. There is a talk between America and Qatar to find an alternative government in Gaza instead of Hamas. And after the 60 days of ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, this government is going to rule Gaza, and this, the government must be independent people and must be, there is no any affiliation from Hamas participating or joining this government. And this government, they are preparing it, and according to Palestinians news agency, unfold there is a Palestinian security. They are taking a training in Egypt to rule Gaza the day one after war, and to be as a security bodies to impose the state in Gaza. Yeah.
Ali Bushback, thank you very much. You are staying with us, but we once again move to a different area of the region. Israeli troops have arrested several members of an Iranian-linked terror cell in southern Syria, according to the Israel Defense Forces. The overnight raid targeted 2 locations near the Israeli border based on intelligence gathered in recent weeks. The operation was carried out by the 474th Golan Regional Brigade alongside field investigators from Military Intelligence Unit 504. During the raid, troops seized a cache of weapons, including firearms and grenades. The IDF has said that it will continue to disrupt Iranian-linked terror groups operating near the Israeli border. Ali is with us once again to discuss this. How does this latest IDF raid in southern Syria fit into Israel's wider strategy to counter Iranian influence along its borders?
Thomas, this is not a first operation or a secret operation that conducted by IDF in Syria after the regime fell, Bashar al-Assad regime fell in Syria. There is there is at least 5 or 6 secret operation from Israel and IDF in Julan and Syria. I guess Al-Julani is not interested to be facing Israel and IDF at this time, especially after the leave of the American sanction in Syria, and they are going to show their willingness for the peace. And there is many reports that about the normalization relation between Syria and Israel. It's not going to impact, but also Al-Shara, he's one of the enemy of Iran in the region, and that's it. He got supported from Saudi Arabia and Emirat and from Qatar, as well as from USA. So the things is, here we are going, and after the fail of Bashar al-Assad regime, Al-Shara, he become as a leader, and the people on the ground from Syria, they are ready to accept any things. I asked several of Syrian if they are going to normalize the relation with Israel. What's their response? They consider it as a normal, as well as during his ruling time, or a temporary time, ruling time, he returned several of items for Israeli spy, which considered and which held by al-Assad's regime before him, his ruling before Bashar. His father was holding this this spies item, which Israel considered as a great operation, and was chanting about this operation. So the things is, and also there is a negotiation between Syria and Israel about Al Julan, if there is going to Israel withdraw or no, about the negotiation, normalization, the relation between Syria and
Yes.
Israel idea. But the thing is, deeply Iran impacted in the area, while there is no exist in Hezbollah. Hezbollah has a limitation in Lebanon and has a no support. There is no Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. So the position of Iran, it's really I guess it's abnormal, and Iran is not holding the power in area like before. So I guess the ability of Iran has been diminished in this area.
Yes, Ali once again, and who joins us as we discuss Israeli domestic politics. The Jerusalem district has cancelled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's scheduled testimony in his criminal trial next week, citing his upcoming visit to the United States. Netanyahu's lawyer said he will be in the US from Sunday through to Thursday or Friday, where he is expected to meet with President Donald Trump, the Vice President, Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff, the Defense Secretary, and senior congressional leaders. The court approved the request, cancelling hearings set for Monday and Wednesday, marking an extension of a more than 1 month hiatus in Netanyahu's testimony. His testimony this week is also cancelled due to unspecified national security issues. He has not appeared in court since the war with Iran, with his last testimony taking place on June the 11th. We're now joined once again by Ali Bushback to discuss this in further detail. Ali, how might Netanyahu's delayed tactics in testifying, especially for this US visit, affect the legal process in Israel, and especially the public trust in it?
There is no doubt, and there is a confirmation from Israeli community that Benjamin Netanyahu is buying time while he's opening the his fighting in Iran and in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria. So all of that as a tool to delay his the testimony in the Israelis court about corruption. So the thing is, Israelis community, there is no one has any doubt about this purpose for Benjamin Netanyahu, and have several of Israelis politicians, giving a testimony about it, and release a testimony and a news report about it. So the thing says Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to buy a time about it, but I guess also we have witnessed that Donald Trump supporting Benjamin Netanyahu, and he, according to his tweet on his social media, that as we save Israel from the war in Iran, and we are going to save Benjamin Netanyahu, and it's a shame on the Israelis court to ask Benjamin Netanyahu to give his testimony during the war, and they should treat him as a war hero. So the things is, and also there is several of Israeli Israelis protester. They took the street against Benjamin Netanyahu during the war and during his war in Syria, in Iraq, in Iran, and during his war in Gaza. So there is these things in never impacting Benjamin Netanyahu, since he could, since he know how to play the card very well, and other people. So in my opinion, Benjamin Netanyahu is not going to be in the jail, and it's not going to impact him again, because he's a strong person, and among all politicians, Israeli politicians, Benjamin Netanyahu one of the strongest politician among of them, and he has a several of support from America, and he has a supporter from Israeli community. And after his war in Iran, and after his war erasing Hamas in Gaza, and erasing the danger from Gaza and Lebanon and Syria, so has a several of a strengthened point for him. So in my opinion, Benjamin Netanyahu, despite he's buying time, but also he's still a strong, and this code, it will not impact his politician life.
Ali M. Bushback, thank you very much as always for joining us on the programme. We now move on and over to Europe, where the Ukrainian Defence Ministry has said that it has not received advance notice of reductions to US arms shipments and said ending Russia's invasion required consistent support. This comes as 9 people were injured in a Russian attack on Ukraine's southern city of Kherson, according to regional governor Alexander Prodkin. Before this, the Pentagon halted some shipments of air defense missiles and other precision munitions to Ukraine over concerns that US stockpiles are too low, according to reports. In a statement, the ministry has said that it had received no official notifications about suspending or changing the delivery schedules for agreed defense assistance. The ministry also said that it is trying to clarify the situation with Washington. Moreover, it underlined that the path to ending the war depends on consistent and united pressure on the aggressor, alongside continued backing for Ukraine's defense needs. The Kremlin, on the other hand, has stated that fewer weapons sent to Ukraine will only bring the conflict closer to an end. Many Ukrainians are reacting with concern to the reported suspension of military aid. Here's some of what they had to say.
Це те, що нам зараз дуже необхідно, адже атаки посилилися і на всі міста, і тому ПВО нам дуже потрібно для того, щоб в плюс-мінус там мирних містах або прифронтових люди знали, що хоча б є якийсь захист. Якщо цього не буде, то буде дуже страшно і ще страшніше, і ще болючіше, і ще більше мирного населення буде страждати. Я дуже сподіваюся, що це тимчасове рішення.
Велика політика і так далі. Пакет Байдена, це призупинений, але не зупинений. Я ж так розумію, там ж теж є якісь закони, згідно яких пакет Байдена має бути одобрений в якісь часові рамки. Тобто це просто призупинення, моя думка.
We're now joined by Gilbert Doctorow, who's a Russian affairs expert, and he joins us live from Brussels, Belgium. Gilbert, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. What are your thoughts on Washington reportedly suspending arms shipments, and how will they affect Ukraine's position on the battlefield in its strategy to push back Russian forces?
Strategy of pushing back Russian forces, I think that is an exaggeration of their ambition. At this moment, they'll be lucky to prevent a collapse of their front. We are talking now about the American withdrawal of equipment for air defense that it took to the Middle East to protect its own bases in the Gulf states. This is at the start of the 12-day Israeli-Iran war. And the notion that Mr. Zelensky was promoting in his brief encounter with Donald Trump in The Hague at the NATO summit last week, the notion that America would send more Patriots, which would be purchased on Ukraine's behalf by Europe using European money, that notion is utterly unrealistic. The fact is that the American Patriots will remain in American hands, and because they really are in short supply. Nonetheless, that will make no difference in the conduct of the war. The Russian hypersonic missiles and other devices that they're sending into Ukraine are unstoppable. The Patriots themselves are destroyed systematically by Russian missiles. Therefore, the Ukrainians are much more dependent on something else. That is the 155 millimeter artillery shells, which the United States probably also has stopped sending to Ukraine while it's hoarding them to rebuild its own arsenal, since that arsenal was dangerously depleted in prior Biden-era supplies sent to Ukraine. So the situation from the standpoint of Ukraine is really much worse than it was before the Iran-Israel war.
Gilbert, thank you. You are staying with us as we move on to our next bit of news. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, has said that Russia still has no access to its detained citizens in Azerbaijan. This comes as Moscow and Baku are in discussed issues of concern. The talks are taking place between the head of the Russian Investigative Committee and Azerbaijan's Prosecutor General, according to the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov. This communications comes in the wake of the arrest in Baku of Russian journalists at media outlet Sputnik, Azerbaijan. Meanwhile, Peskov has also said that Moscow will defend the legitimate interest of its nationals detained in Azerbaijan through diplomatic channels, using all available means. This comes after the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Azerbaijan accused a group of Russians of being members of organized criminal networks involved in cybercrime and drug smuggling. According to an Azerbaijani news agency, the Sabail District Court in Baku has ordered the 8 Russian citizens to be held in custody for 4 months. We're once again joined by Gilbert Doctorow to discuss this developing situation. Gilbert, how can Moscow justify demanding special treatment for its detained citizens in Azerbaijan when they're accused of such serious crimes like cybercrime and drug smuggling?
I think we have to take a step back. Where did this start? The relations between Azerbaijan and Russia, at least at the formal level, were very good. They were very good until Russia shot down an Azerbaijan passenger plane over its territory about a little bit less than 6 months ago. And that could have been taken care of in a normal way had the Russians done what is accepted in such circumstances. The shooting down was probably a mistake, which occurred because the plane was flying in an area where there were drone attacks at the same time from Ukraine. And it is conceivable, if the Russian explanation was correct, that this was caught in crossfire as the Russians were trying to destroy these drones. However, the Russians did not do what civilized behavior dictates. They did not apologize to Azerbaijan for this catastrophe. They did not offer compensation for to the families of the bereaved whose passengers died in that crash, nor did they offer compensation for the plane. And this came several months after the Azerbaijanis had mistakenly shot down a Russian helicopter, I'm not sure exactly where, and then profusely apologized to Russia and paid compensation. So the contrast in behavior was stark. The Azerbaijanis took offense. Mr. Aliyev, the head of the government in Azerbaijan, personally took offense. He is a Russian speaker. He graduated from the prestigious Magimo University in Moscow. He is favorably disposed to Russia, and now he is definitely not disposed to Russia because of Moscow's bad behavior. And what we saw in the last few days, including the arrest of the Sputnik journalist that you mentioned, and the death in custody of a couple of Azerbaijanis in Ekaterinburg, which happened a day or two ago and prompted a further spat between the two countries. This is an exacerbation of relations that is not needed and could have been avoided if Moscow had behaved properly. It still has not behaved properly.
Gilbert Doctorow, thank you very much for your insight on that. We now move over to the African continent for our next story, where a confidential United Nations report has accused Rwanda of exercising command and control over M23 rebels during their advance in eastern Congo, giving Kigali access to mineral-rich territory and expanded political influence. According to the report, Rwanda provided military training to M23 recruits and deployed advanced weapon systems, including technology capable of neutralizing air assets, giving the rebels a decisive tactical advantage. The report submitted to the UN Security Council Sanctions Committee in May, says Rwanda's support for M23 was not primarily aimed at combating the FDLR militia, as Kigali claims, but rather seizing additional Congolese territory. M23 rebels seized the key cities of Goma and Bukavu earlier this year, and the UN report estimates 6,000 Rwandan troops have been active in Congo's north and south Kivu provinces. It also accuses Rwanda of violating an international arms embargo and of firing a missile that killed a UN peacekeeper in January. The report also says M23's withdrawal from the mineral-rich area of Walikale was made under direct instructions from Rwanda. Rwanda and Congo have yet to respond to the allegations, but the report also notes that Congo has been providing logistical support to FDLR fighters and pro-government militias in violation of UN's sanctions. We're now joined by Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin, who's an African journalist, and he joins us from Ghana. Thank you very much for joining us, Mahmoud. What could these UN findings mean for the regional stability and Rwanda's relations with the United Nations and also, of course, neighbouring Congo moving forward?
So this has been a major issue being raised by several people after Rwanda and DR Congo signed the peace deal. It was a question of if Rwanda didn't know anything about M23 group, why then would they sign a peace deal? Because you are signing a peace deal for what exactly if you don't have interest or you don't have hand in security issues in DR Congo. So this was one of the issues being raised by many people, and the fact that if Rwanda didn't know anything about M23 group, and how will the peace deal actually resolve the issue in the eastern part of DR Congo, where the M23 group has actually taken most of the cities and towns and communities there. So it's something that needs to be looked at very well. Probably Rwanda was under pressure to sign the peace deal, but it is important for them to agree or to take a second look at their stance and probably see what they can do to support the peace deal in this particular area. Because if these documents that are coming from UN is pointing fingers at Rwanda, then it means that they will need to do something important to ensure that they will be able to implement this peace deal, to ensure that peace will return to the eastern part of DR Congo. Other than that, if we don't really know, now DR Congo itself government says it doesn't know anything about the M23 group, and Rwanda is also not interested in accepting the fact that there are those, backing or supporting the group, then it becomes a difficult issue. Now, even though the peace deal has been signed, but it becomes difficult now that these findings are pointing fingers at Rwanda.
Yes, Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin, thank you very, very much for joining us on the programme. Well, that is all we have time for here, but we will continue to bring you more international news updates. Thank you very much.